Oakland Community College. I'm a tutor and an SI. I also work with people who have differential abilities. But my daughter's learned to ask, she's like, now, are these the special people or are these the other people? And I said, honey, they're all special people. Because we are all special people. And we did talk a little bit about respect with our keynote speaker originally today. I love my clicker. So this is putting class back in the classroom. Why do we do it? I wish I didn't have to. I absolutely wish that I never had to talk to anyone about respect. Unfortunately, I find that I do. So the question is, I have a feeling I'm not the only one. Am I the only one who sees a little bit of lack of respect? Okay. So we're going to talk about the things that people do that they probably shouldn't. That they probably shouldn't do to anyone, including their own mother. But we'll go through a little bit of it. And another reminder I want for us is please don't do these things either. Because if you were thinking of it, please do not. Oh. So, respect. We're going to go through classroom do's and don'ts. And then I have another question for you. What does TCB mean? Who knows? I don't mean a yogurt. TCBY is fantastic yogurt. Yes, please. Yeah, you have business. Taking care of business. Great. So we're going to talk about taking care of business and what it means. So yes, we're going with welcome to respect. Enjoy your stay. Ideally, my thought process is learning shouldn't have to hurt. Learning should be fun. And we should all be able to get through it and work with teamwork. So yes, of course we need more music. Instructors take care of business. When students show respect, they show a readiness to learn. This works the same with tutors. We need the same respect, don't we? I am not saying that tutors are instructors. What I'm saying is we need that kind of respect. In order to get that respect, think about what we're going to do to get it. Because we need to make sure that we get it. Stated expectations do increase classroom civility. I'm assuming all of you know what I mean when I say classroom civility. And it's not all really loud music, just so you know. So I'm going to start small, because sometimes when you start small and you build up, it works. So I'm going to go with manners such as please and thank you. Very simple, but as an instructor passes out a test, do you notice if you sit in on a classroom that there are a lot of students who say thank you? Do you also notice there's a lot who don't? There's a lot who snarl. And more often than not, there's a lot who just aren't there for it. That happens too. Yes, we are going to talk about basic hygiene. That's another one where, gosh, I really wish I didn't have to talk about it. Again, keep your eyes open, not glazed over. This is expected from everybody. And make sure if you're sitting in on a classroom, because a lot of you, if you're supplemental instructors, many of you will sit on a classroom, it is your job to be a mentor. You are modeling the appropriate behavior. Please make sure you're always modeling the appropriate behavior. So if that little flashy on your phone makes you want to touch it, turn it over. All of us should absolutely wait our turn. Do show up, unless you're sick. If you're sick, not so much. There are things we should share, and there are things we should not. The flu is one of these should nots, by the way. Absolutely. Keep your ears open, again, without earbuds. And I do find that I have to explain this to people. So my question is, am I the only one?
Yeah.
I'm not the only one who sees it. Okay. Again, appropriate language, appropriate clothing. I know that someone else has an example of not so appropriate clothing. What is some not so appropriate clothing we see? Come on, the worse it is, the better. Yes, please.
Maybe no-cut tops.
Yes. Yeah, I personally believe there's a time and a place for cleavage, and it may not be in the classroom. And when I say cleavage, I do mean a couple different kinds of cleavage. So, to be honest with you, call me a prude, but the only kind of cleavage I find acceptable might be toe cleavage, okay? The rest of it, you don't need to see in the classroom. And it is okay to laugh, because you have to laugh do. I handle that. Oh my gosh. I do call it tissue issues. Because I cannot be the only one who's heard this. Oh. I can't concentrate with that. I still remember being in a political science class trying to take the test, and there was a gentleman next to me. When I use the term gentleman, I'm going to use that loosely because I don't understand how a gentleman's going to do that. But yes, it was incredibly loud. And also sleeves.
Yeah.
So, little things you might want to do. Don't get me wrong. I understand if you need a tissue, and if you don't have a tissue, it's okay to leave the class. But wow! Once again, I'm not the only one who's seen it. Do break with the class when they break. Make sure that people do that. Kind of give them, it's okay, because give them a helpful, friendly reminder. As a tutor, you can kind of be more than friendly. Hey, by the way, did all 4 of you really need to get up right then and use the ladies' room? It's okay. We're really there to help them. However, sometimes the help that they need is more than just textbook help. So it is a little bit about study skills. A lot of it's common sense. How common is common sense?
Not so common.
Not as common as one might imagine, strangely. So yes, I do tell people, use your tools, don't be one. Now, what are your tools? Tell me. And by the way, if you want to cheat, they're right there. So it's kind of like an open book test. What tools are used in the classroom? Start with a pen, right? A pen, a calculator, laptop, absolutely.
iMac.
What'd you say, I'm sorry?
iMac.
Yeah. So you may have anything. You can open up your tablet, you can have anything else. You can use a recording device. Those are all tools you can use. Be aware of the tools. As a tutor, working in a school, when you're there, be aware of the tools that are available for everybody. Not, ooh, you didn't do so good on that test, you might want some extra tutoring. Not like that. But, hey, did you know that I often see a bunch of people in our academic support center? Did you know this exists? People don't always know what exists. They may not know that they can get one-on-one tutoring. They may not be aware. So be the voice. Be the voice that helps them and says, we want to help you. The homework, pretty important tool, strangely. So make sure they know the rules. Show up with your homework. Because if your homework isn't done and someone's asking you to do it, what's your answer? No. Why? And it's not about the answer, it's about the process. Learning, academia, is about the process. It's not about the answer, it's about how you get to the answer. So we need to move away from memorization, don't you think? Because students who only learned memorization are not the students who are better able to move forward. Make sure they know there's a library. Strangely, there are some that don't realize that there's a library. They're cute. What not to do. Because I talk about this is what you have to do. There is some what not to do. The phones. When I say that, I truly have been in a classroom where a gentleman asked the professor a question, took a phone call in the middle of the time that the professor was answering this question, and began to talk to another person. I don't make these things up. They happen. So the question is, what can we do? What can we do to make it a little bit better? Absolutely with computers, strangely. I'm not going to say you should not have a computer in the classroom. However, many times, having a computer in the classroom is a distraction for people who already get distracted. If it's a distraction, let's say, for example, if the instructor's talking and you know they're the nicest possible person on earth, but they may be slightly boring in that particular subject, and everybody's laughing and giggling around somebody's computer, chances are they're not focused. Be aware of arrivals and departures. If you show up late, if you have to, sneak in the back. Not everybody gets that. Expectations that some students have is expecting a teacher to repeat a lecture they missed. Have you seen this? Yeah. And they present questions. Did I miss anything? Yeah, the answer is yeah, the point. You missed the point of learning. More of what not to do. Some do expect makeups at their convenience. Again, make sure they know this. If people have set expectations, they've got a better chance at filling them. Arriving under the influence, goodness sakes, I wish I never saw this. Once again, I'm not the only one. Do not bring children, toys, or pets. Does it happen? Thank you. Plagiarizing or otherwise cheating. Saying, by the way, I changed the words. Still plagiarizing. When you're working with someone, if you're an English tutor, you work with them and they're barely literate, and and they come up with something that James Joyce would have written, it might be time to take a look. And another thing is arguing. Don't get me wrong, rational discussion. In other words, if you are in a classroom and your instructor makes a mistake, what should you do? What do you guys do? Please, yes.
I raise my hand and I say, did you mean this? And that's what I do.
Perfect.
That's what I do.
Right, because you're doing that without throwing somebody under the bus. You're saying, oh, you probably meant this, right? So always, with anybody, working with students, and if you're working hand in hand with instructors, give people a soft place to fall. Absolutely. Because everybody makes mistakes. But pointing it out and saying they're wrong isn't going to be very comfortable for anyone. Please keep this in mind, because I'm assuming that quite a few of us are still taking classes. And if you're still taking classes, yeah, don't do these things. Please do not do these things. Don't make it all about you. Bring your materials. If you do drop a class, honest to gosh, it is nicer to let people know. If you are doing group work and you drop a class, please, please, please let the other people know. This happens. This happens often with a lot of group work. As far as food goes, check with your instructor about eating food, and just don't bring something super stinky. Don't get me wrong, salmon tastes great and it's really good for you. But everybody else might not be so darn excited. So I want to go through, ask you guys, what are some other ways? What have you seen? Because I know you have good stories. Oh, I would love to hear beauty, please.
As I tutor in a lab, and my sessions are scheduled by open lab time. The unfortunate thing is, in LCC's room booking system, these labs appear as vacant classrooms. So we always have to kind of fight to get people out of them. So one of the things they use is a sign-in system. So even if you're there to see me, you must still sign in with the lab aides. And we get people who, back in the old days, it was just writing your name on a piece of paper. Now it's just swiping an ID. But we had people who, just for some unknown reason, were very much against writing their name on said piece of paper. And they think that because, well, my class is, I'm in the next class that's an hour away, that's exempts them from that. And I had one girl storm out of the room, slam the door, and call me a, quote, fucking retard. The best part was her instructor was up front. She couldn't see him because he was hiding behind the Hymax screen.
Yeah, now let's take that apart and find how many levels of wrong that is. So when I say that, what I mean is this. Strangely, I've found an incredible amount of people who believe that F-bombs should be used in regular language. And if that is your choice in your home, that's your choice in your home. However, not appropriate. And especially my friends that I work with in financial aid that I know get to hear that quite a bit. So it is okay to tell people that, we just don't talk like that here. Why? Because it is offensive to some. Again, I'm not judging. I'm just saying it's offensive to some people and it will immediately turn them off. Other level of wrong. So let's say you were differentially abled. Yeah, we don't use that word anymore, strangely. So, yeah, people they don't always realize it. Why do you think this is happening? Why is there a lack of respect?
Well, my experience, it's a sense of entitlement.
Yes.
These students, they sign up for these classes, they walk in, they assume, oh, that's my machine. I can do whatever I want with it.
I've seen their feet up in the library with their shoes off.
They do that in ours too.
Or the phone that's on all the time.
Mhm.
And they're talking loudly when no one else can concentrate. Yeah, I mean, yes, please.
I am an instructor and I teach a class on college success skills, which is study skills. And the first day we go over the syllabus, and I went over my attendance policy, and out of 15 sessions, they can only miss 3 of them in order to still get credit for the class. And so one of the students in my class one semester raised his hand and said, oh, so we're only allowed to miss 3. Which 3 do you suggest that I miss? And that was the very first class, and I thought, all right, your number, and I, wrote down who it was, so that was not very impressive. And he thought he was being funny, and I was insulted, so.
And wouldn't you love to believe that that was the only time anything like that has ever occurred? Let me ask you, is that the only time anything like that occurred?
It was the second time that he had taken my class, so, and the second time, I guess he thought he had, more ability to say insulting things to me, I don't know. So, the first time he hadn't done so well, and he didn't end up finishing that class either, so. You tell where his head was. Not where it should have been.
Probably not, yeah.
I'd be so tempted to say, on a related note, the date was last day to drop the class.
Yes, it is.
That's a really good point. That's a wonderful thing to bring up. I mean, honestly, the best sessions for me are when everybody talks and we get together, because I know that you guys have seen some frightening things. I know you have.
I nicknamed the section of the building that I tutor in the insane asylum.
There you go. Going through just a little bit more. So I have a gender respect example. Don't worry, this one's short, but just another way to add in a little bit more. It's a lovely song. It's If You Were My Lady. And why do I tell you this? Because I was in a human resource management class, and we had a group of people, and a woman had spoken her mind. And a guy turned around and said, if you was my lady, she stood up taller than you could imagine, standing up, and explained to him why no one would own her, and especially never him. So these things absolutely happen. And I will never forget. So we're going to stick with the golden rule. This is the simplest thing if you get nothing else, and this is something that everybody should know. But it is very simple. It is not, she who makes the gold makes the rules. It is, treat others as you would wish to be treated. Very, very simple. Respect is universal. We should all do this. And when I tell you, every major religion has its own version of the golden rule, there it is. Once again, I don't make this stuff up. It's all very similar. Respect is all important. We should use it in communication, not just in communication when I'm standing here at a podium anywhere else, but in our homes. We forget to respect and love the people that we live with every day. We forget to say please and thank you for the simple things. It is just an expectation. And sometimes we treat it as an entitlement. However, how about the idea of respect being earned? We should treat everybody with it, but also people do need to earn it. So make sure in the things that you do, people know that respect is an expectation. Do you mind if I go past this one? And you do have a copy of it too. Part of it is respecting yourself. So when I'm saying make sure that people know this, do respect yourself, your space, your instructor, your peers. Have personal responsibility. Yes, unfortunately, some of that does mean being on time. And that can be difficult. And I also struggle with it too, don't worry. I am wildly human. Here's another one, personal hygiene. Gotta give you this one, the big ew. When I say appropriate clothing, we talked about that, had a little discussion of cleavage. The other one is, yes, I have had to tutor someone alone in a room who I'm not sure if she's ever brushed her teeth. Eventually I did have to end that, because realistically, a lot of people go to school not just to learn, but to get a career. And this is going to be a person who's going to have a rather difficult time in any career, because how many careers are you going to have dealing with people where you never have to lie? So this is an expectation, and it's a rather uncomfortable situation to have to try to explain this to someone. So one of my personal prayers to you is, may you never have to deal with that. However, if you do, and you are making seating arrangements for people, do keep in mind that, keep cultural differences in mind. So you may wish to not set people next to each other, or have them in different groups, or allow them to choose their own groups for this reason. And I'm trying to be non-discriminatory, but be clear, sometimes there's a reason to allow people to choose their own groups. Quickie on do not be Wendell, because you know there's a story behind this one, right? So, the story goes like this. Wendell was my bus driver. Now, I grew up not too far from here. Anybody heard of Hickory Corners, Michigan? Okay, that's where my family lives. So I went to Kellogg Elementary, and Wendell was my bus driver. Well, it was kind of, I'm going to call it in the sticks. So the bus ride was about an hour long. Wendell picked us up pretty early, and Wendell had a job, it was probably, from the smell of it, feeding pigs before he drove our bus. And you couldn't roll those windows down. There was really not much you could do. So all I'm saying is, make sure people know that do not be Wendell. Again, the respect your body and yourself. Personal stress, diet, and sleep, try to get it. Because there are plenty of people who are going to get that little nap during class time. Not as helpful. So what would you do if you're sitting next to somebody who's napping? Kind of depends on how big they are too. I mean, let's face it, I come in a small package. What would you do?
Just nudge them a little bit, maybe nonchalantly, not to draw attention to them or to anybody else, but to just kind of wake them up. Sometimes people just nod off because they're just not paying attention.
Yeah. Yes.
I've accidentally slid textbooks off the front of my desk so they kind of slam on the floor.
Beautiful.
So it's not them, it's me, the clumsy person who dropped the book.
I like it. Anyone else? Anyone else have good ideas at work? Yeah, it's not about embarrassing people. It's all about, you know what, you can only get in so much information, but when you're asleep, you don't get much in. Yes, please.
In one of my classes, we have a gentleman who is, he announced his age, he's 74 years old, and occasionally he'll nod off. But everybody's like, okay, he's 74 years old, so nobody says anything until, because he wakes up. Like, I think that we keep that in mind as far as, we know what he's there for personal enrichment, and it's a percussion class of all things, so when he's falling asleep, we're banging away on things. So it's not like we can drop a book.
So the darn book.
Right, that could work. But that, he, sometimes physical limitations will need to be kept in mind.
That makes sense, absolutely. And I have found people like, who will do the good old-fashioned stomp their feet and say, he never told me that. I'm like, could you have been napping during that time? There's quite a few things you can say as long as you say it with that nice little lilt to your voice. Is there a shot that you may have been napping? And they look at you like, are you, no, I'm not kidding. I think that might have been during your nap. Which leads us into active learning. Again, what is active learning? Do we all know what it is? Good. Somebody who's not me, say it.
Yeah, well, it's not what I see. It's when you take ownership and you're teaching yourself the material and participating. That's what I consider active learning.
So-
You're making an active effort to make it your own understanding.
Beautiful. And you see, this is what you guys are doing. That might be a reason why you're tutors. And we're dealing with people who are working with trying to help teach people things. Yes, active learning is being there. It's being in the moment. It can be taking notes. It can be just following along, saying you're there, participating. I see people participating. I see their eyes. Be in the moment. You're there. You're there, be all there. This just goes into a little bit with active learning, some of the things you can do. Asking questions. Ask questions. If you don't get it, say, I don't get it. If you do get it, I see a lot of nods, or I'll see the smiles. I'm like, oh, I know you got a story. because they're like, yes, I know what you're talking about. Talking aloud. Admitting that you're imperfect, saying, I have a problem with this, what can I do? Or, I have a solution. I truly believe we need to move away a little bit from lecturing. That said, I understand exactly where I'm standing. But you need to move away from talking at someone and bringing them in. Make them care. Get the buy-in. What do you do to get buy-in from people?
Which one?
Oh, I absolutely looking at you.
Well, I work at the front desk.
Okay.
So I kind of see, I guess, a lot of the students before they'll go to their sessions, but to get them in, we're probing them. What do you really want out of this? And then I know that the tutors will follow up with that and then ask them again, but to get their buy-in is just finding out who they are, why they're here, and what they want out of it.
Let's take it the opposite. How would you not get their buy-in? Let's take it directly to the negative. What could you do to turn them off from tutoring?